Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Bosher, and today I want to show you how to make some dark and ominous DX7 type pads with the Thor synthesizer in Reason. And this loop was just something I made to give you a taste of what this type of pad can sound like. But yeah, I just want to show you how we can make some of that Yamaha DX7 type old school pad type noise with a little texture. So let's get started. And what I did here is I got a new project open, and I did create a new combinator, of course, and I copied and pasted the notes from the previous little ditty over here to here. So, but other than that, in the rack of the new project in the combinator, you can just make sure to right click, create that combi, right click in the combinator, and let's create an instance of Thor. And always make sure to right click and reset the device, or initialize patch, of course. Now, first and foremost, let's just essentially bypass the first filter here, filter 1, and then let's turn up the release polyphony up to 8, and this is completely up to taste. There are no right or wrong answers, of course, when it comes to this. Whatever works for you is what works best. So let's just head over to the first analog oscillator here, and we're going to keep it an analog oscillator by default. We're going to change it to the triangle wave here. We're going to keep the octave at 4, and we're going to make sure that it's to the filter 1 enable, so it's activated and going through the first filter. So we'll get to that here in a bit. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the second oscillator. We're going to activate it. We're going to use a noise oscillator this time, though. We're going to set the mode to bandwidth noise, and then we're going to set the bandwidth to 0. So it will essentially represent a single frequency depending on what note you play, which it's actually, you can actually play notes. It's like another instrument in itself. And we're going to change the octave to 5 on this one here. So you got 4 here, 5 on this one. And what we're going to do next is we're going to make sure to sync the second oscillator to the first one, and that basically means that we're going to reset the duty cycle of the second oscillator with the first oscillator, so they stay in phase essentially. And then we're not going to activate it though, we're just going to use it for some modulation here. So this is what we have so far, very basic. This is what we have. Almost like some Zelda, some old school Zelda type, 8-bit style. So kind of cool though. But let's continue. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the amplitude modulation from oscillator 2 fader here, and we're going to set this to 95. We're going to modulate the amplitude of the triangle oscillator with this bandpass noise, so it creates a nice little texture going on there, and you'll hear it here very quickly. But we're going to get in the third oscillator, and we're going to create an FM pair. This is going to give it that nice chop, give it that nice kind of DX7 type feel. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set the octave to 2, and then we're going to set the carrier frequency to 6, and the modulation frequency to 18. And those, of course, just create sidebands, and I've explained in other tutorials how FM pairs work, so I'm not going to delve too much into that. We're going to set the frequency modulation amount just from 24 to 25, so hold shift, click and drag, and get that specific number. And then we're going to also sync it to oscillator 1, so it resets the cycle of the phase and make sure that they're in phase, just like I said, with each oscillator here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to activate oscillator 3 into filter 2, and we're going to activate the filter 2 to amplifier, and then we'll do the next filters here. But first, let's just take a listen to what we have. Very bright, very piercing. Higher carrier and higher modulation frequency presents higher noises, higher timbral values, I should say, higher sidebands. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the mixer real quick, and we're just going to set the oscillator 1 and 2 balance to 0, making oscillator 1 the only one that you hear. We're just going to use the noise oscillator purely for modulation. And next we're going to make sure that oscillator 3 is all the way up at 0.0 decibels, but that is completely up to you. That's just something that I did in the previous patch there. But next, let's get into the filters here. So let's go to filter 1. Let's go to the low pass ladder filter. Keep it the low pass 24 type 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this to 449 hertz. Bam. And we're going to set the resonance to about 44. Boom. And then we're going to set the filter envelope amount to 100. We're going to have the filter envelope down here modulate the filter quite heavily. And then we're going to set the filter 1 velocity, how hard you hit the key and how much it affects the envelope, to nothing. So it's not going to really affect it. But that's up to you. Definitely recommend messing with that. And so at this point, I'm going to play it out with just the filter and no messing with the ADSR yet. This is what we have. Not much different, just because we kind of filtered out the triangle here, but we're going to get to the second filter right now. We're also going to activate a second low pass on the filter 2, and this is where the FM pair is going to go through. And we're going to set this to 143 hertz. We're going to keep it that 24 type 2 by default. It's a really good filter in itself. And we're going to set the resonance to about 22. And the envelope amount here is going to be about 71. We're going to use it a little less for this FM pair, and the velocity down to 0 for this particular portion. Alright, so let's take one more listen before we do the filter envelope. Much more subdued, much more cleaner, much cleaner, and just a lot better. Let's start giving it a little bit more motion with the filter envelope. We're going to keep the attack at 0 for the filter envelope to give it that nice kind of pluck sound at the beginning, but that, always mess with that. The decay is going to be at about 3.33 seconds. Nice tail. Sustain, how long the decay is after it completes its cycle, is about 33.6 decibels. There it is. And then the release is about 140 milliseconds. But these are more or less arbitrary. You can pick whatever you want. And then what we're going to do next is we're just going to go to the mod matrix. But let's listen to what we have with with these particular settings. Not too much craziness just happened, but let's take a quick listen. Just a little cleaner, just a little cleaned up, nothing too crazy. And it's one of those things where you can always play in lower octaves or lower notes and see what happens. But we're going to give it some more motion, and we're going to go to the mod matrix. So let's take LFO1 in the first source. Let's set it to 50 in the middle. We're going to set the destination to filter 1 frequency, so it starts to vibrate this frequency here. Next, we're going to go to the second source. We're going to use the filter envelope, and we're going to use the amount of 60. And we're going to use the filter envelope to modulate the Oscillator 3 FM amount, which is the frequency modulation amount. So we'll basically be modulating this knob here with this envelope here. And then the third thing is LFO2. And that's going to be for 47 is the amount. So LFO2 to 47 to Oscillator 3's FM amount. So we're going to give it some nice texture. Just to make it vibrate a little bit while being opened up by the filter envelope. The LFO 1 and 2 will not be key synced or tempo synced. We're just going to set this to about 3.39 hertz for the LFO 1. The second LFO is going to be 11.9 hertz, a little bit faster, more buzzier. And then just make sure to raise the amp envelope so it doesn't click in the attack and the release a little bit. And I don't always do this, but for these types of pads, I kind of like it to just shine all the way through. So the attack, or the decay and sustain are all the way up. So let's take a listen now. And like that, it's just got a little more vibrato, got a little more motion, a little more texture. And I really like this patch. It's pretty steezy. It's ominous. It's dark. So other than that, you can add a reverb real quick. And I did this very quickly. And I used a patch. I just used a preset. So it was the all key verb. So it was all key verb. Yep. And then I just set the dry wet to 46. That's it. This is what we have. And that is everything in it in this pad. We are finished. And just like that, you got some steezy pads. You can add another filter here, filter 3 for low pass, just to give it a whole, so you can control the whole thing as a master filter, but that's up to you. But you know, I'll save this real quick. It's very simple. So we'll just do ABB DX7 dark pad. Yeah, that works. Why not? And I'll make that available to you guys for download for free. But other than that, we are all finished here. So thank you so much for watching. And if you have any comments or feedback, let me know. And please, if you like the video, definitely give it a thumbs up, like it, so more people can get access to this information, help spread that knowledge. And if you want, you can subscribe. I'll definitely be coming out with more of these, of course, and more workouts and everything else. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.